Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today we are going to do a take on the old sort of flowers and leaves, but we're going to jazz it up and take it to the next level and also show you just how simple it is to create something really, really gorgeous. Now, this card does take some twists and turns, so bear with me, I promise. Wait till the end. Now, this die set here is the Etched Blooms 2 from Paper Rose, but you, I'm sure, will have some flower dies in your stash. I cut these out all in white. I store them all in the back of the packaging so that when I come to create a project like this and I'm not sure of the color scheme I want to use, it means I can color the flowers whatever I want to color them. If you want to, you could cut them out in pattern cardstock. You could also cut them out of some colored cardstock. But for me, I'm going to do some very, very quick inking. Now, this one is a favorite. This is the Curvy leaves from Pinkfresh Studios. I believe this one is still available, and I know you've seen me use this a lot because this kind of leaf is just really one that you can use in so many ways. This is one that you could cut out in some fun foam and turn into a stamp. I've done that before this set. This is one that you can just put behind any little bit of floral just to give it that extra little oomph, or you can just use this as a main focal point as well. You saw that I had heat emboss some with some gold embossing before, and that also looks stunning. The options are endless with some good leaf dies. Now, I am going to link a couple of different options down below for my most favorite leaves. So this one and the Pink and Main, the Leafy Dies 1, these have got to be my favorite. I do like the Leafy Dies 2 from the Pink and Main. As I said, I'll link these down below. I think it is well worth having a good leafy die in your stash. And then any kind of flowers, these are just very basic design flowers, and I like that they kind of don't look like anything. It means that I have no pressure to make them look like a particular thing, and you can do whatever you like. So I'm doing some extremely basic inking here, and I just am not being too fussed whether I get right to the edges. I'm not being too fussed about the colors. I'm just using several different blues. I have some Salty Ocean, some Tumbled Glass, some Mermaid Lagoon, some Blueprint Sketch, and maybe some Uncharted Mariner, I think. Yeah, so Broken China, just all the blues, any blues that I have. And you absolutely don't have to use Distress Oxide. You can use any inks. You could use some watercolor pens. You could use some colouring in pencils. You could use alcohol markers, whatever you want. This is the kind of project that I love that is so flexible. There's so many different ways you can go about creating it, but we just go about creating a gorgeous layout and a gorgeous card. But I must admit that it takes some turns because halfway through I decide I just want to change it up a little bit. But anyhow, I'm going through with these. I've got all these different flowers that are all different. I'm going to layer these up to give them some real texture, and they don't become too bulky as well, which is key. Now, I've done all of the flowers. I'm going to put those aside and let the ink dry for just a minute. I'm taking some Mowed Lawn, Peeled Paint, and Rustic Wilderness, except I don't think I end up using the Rustic Wilderness at all. I start off the lightest layer of Peeled Paint and I just go through and dab. I don't even worry if there's white spots. I don't want to cover everything. I don't want it to be even coverage. I want to create texture, and I do find that really tricky sometimes to not have it sort of even and perfect. That's something that I fight in my brain, and so I just add colour here and there, come in with a little bit of Mowed Lawn, and again, I'm not wanting to cover up all of the light spots, which kind of goes against what my brain is telling me. I just want a tiny bit of colour here and there. So we've got the leaves. It truly took me 30-ish seconds. Now, this is a new glue that I'm trying. This one was free with a scrapbook.com order. It looks like the Artist Craft glue. I'm not sure on it. I must admit it feels just like PVA glue to me, and not 100% sure. It does come with lots of different little needles and fine tips and all the good things that you may need, but for the minute I think I'm sticking with my matte medium. But I did want to try it out and give it a go. And I'm just layering up these flowers. It doesn't matter if some are bigger, some are smaller, some have 3 layers, some have 4, some have 2. It doesn't matter. I don't need it to be uniform. I'm trying to make it not uniform. Trying not to worry. This is one of those projects that I just want to do some relaxing card making, and I really enjoy getting inky every now and then as well. And so that was kind of the job today. Then I'm actually going to take the old labels stamp set, and this one here, you can see that I store all of my spare fussy cut images in the back so that I can go to if they're what I need. I don't have to restamp them and they're just sitting there waiting. I'm going to take some VersaFine Clear Morning Mist ink. I do love this grey ink. Even more, I love it that when you stamp it off once, it becomes a lighter ink but still stamps solidly. And now that's something tricky to find. And so I have that scrap piece of paper over on the left. I'm stamping off the first generation of stamp and using the second generation because I just want some interest happening in my background. This is not going to be a completely sort of covered full background that I'm creating with the leaves and the flowers, so I need there to be something else happening. Along the same lines as that is the splatter stencil, and I'm just going to use a little bit of Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink. This is like a shade lighter than the Morning Mist, and it's okay to mix up your inks. It's okay to use some pigment inks, some dye inks, some hybrid inks. Use whatever you have if it's the colour that you need, and I'm just going to use a little finger dauber. I don't want this to be super bright and super overwhelming. I like to call it a little bit of background noise, a little bit of texture going on, just so that it's not plain white, but we also don't want it to be ultra distracting from the focal images as well. So I'm just adding a little bit here and there, and I know this looks a bit bitty or a bit, the stamping in the background's a little weird at the moment, but I promise that it will get there once we add on the greenery and things, and this will all change how you see it. And that is part of the card making process, is that it is a process and it's a fun process, and if this doesn't work, paper has two sides for a reason, so flip it over and try again and see if you have learned something from the first way you did it and something that you might want to change. Then I'm going to trim this down just ever so slightly so that it has a nice gorgeous border around it. And then I'm also going to use some vanilla malt cardstock, and this is going to create my card base. This one is from Fawn. I'm really loving the vanilla malt cardstock as a card base at the moment. Just something that's not white, because I have a white card front there as well, and I think this just adds a little bit, it's a little less harsh than the white, but I absolutely do love a good white too. I'm just going through a phase, and we all have those. So there you go, I can see that this is coming together. I always double check when I have trimmed my card front that it is actually going to fit my card base and it looks right, and my measurements seem to have gone well. Then I'm going to pop a little bit of my matte medium. This is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish. That's what's inside these glue bottles, and it is my favourite glue. It's my trusty favourite glue, and I'm going to pop these flowers on here. I do love a good liquid glue because you can kind of see this is a work in progress, this thing, so I'm going to sort of move some bits and pieces, and I can sort of angle the leaves with this set. You can kind of move them around and it still sits nice and flat, whether you want the leaf to be sort of extra curvy or a little more straight than curvy, if that makes sense. You can kind of move things around and it still all sits nicely. So you can see how the layout is kind of going to go there, and this is going to change things in a minute too. Now I have all of my flowers ready to go. Some of them have white centers, all different blues, and I'm just going to space them down here. Now usually I would say, and everybody will tell you, that you should do odd numbers, like 3 or 5 is pleasing to the eye, and I guess that is a good rule, but 4 today is also my number, and I think it looks okay. 5 felt too busy and 3 felt not enough, so I'm going to do 4, and that's okay. So I'm just putting a big chunk of glue behind these right in the center, and then it kind of squishes out, and I know it's not going anywhere. And then at this point I was like, maybe I want the card in a different direction. Does it go good this way? Or this is how I originally intended it, but maybe it could go upside down. Maybe it looks good that way. And then I got all sorts of thinking as to which way I thought it could go. Originally, I had very much intended this to go portrait, but I've changed my mind and is now going to go landscape, which is just fine too. I'm going to get a gorgeous stamp from the Big Birthdays stamp set from Gina Designs, and I just think that lots of these would fit really nicely in that gap that we have created. If you wanted to, you could also put a gorgeous die cut in there. I think that would look nice too. I think a really nice ombre blue would look really good in there against the white background. But I am going to go fairly neutral since I already have the colour up there near the top. I can put this in the right place, put this in my stamping platform. At this point, when everything is glued on, this is not when I want to be mucking it up with stamping. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and use the platform. I'm using the Morning Mist colour again from the VersaFine Clair. If I haven't said it before or you haven't heard it, then the VersaFine Clair pigment inks are beautiful for stamping. They give crisp, solid results every single time. So if I know I need a really crisp, beautiful, solid image, then that is definitely my go-to. Now at this point I could see there were some gaps. I hadn't brought out this little bit of texture sort of far enough, and because I didn't know the placement of my flowers, I've now changed my mind a little bit, so we can go back and add things in. You can add them at any time. Card making is a process, and it doesn't mean just because you did something and you finished with that product that you can't go back and add a little more later on when things are coming together. Now, this card is nearly finished, and I almost left it like this, but I felt like I just wanted a little pop of colour in the centre of those flowers just to be a little bit fun. So I'm going to use some little enamel dots to go in the centre. It's your choice if they go on or off, but I like the pop of colour. And then that is our card for today. So I think this was a gorgeous little flowers and leaves situation, and it turned out really, really nice. So let me know your kind of go-to layout for flowers and leaves. If you have something that you lean towards, or that you sort of, it's your go-to, or if you more prefer just one big gorgeous floral. Lots of good options out there anyhow. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video today. There is always the products linked below in case you would like to check them out. But other than that, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!